Have you ever brushed off those late-night bathroom trips or that dull ache in your hips telling yourself, it's just age catching up with me? What if I told you those small, everyday annoyances might be the very first whispers of prostate cancer? The truth is, according to the American Cancer Society, 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed in their lifetime, and most don't discover it until the disease has already advanced. That's why Dr. Edward Blake is here with something you won't want to ignore. A simple 1-minute self-test you can do at home right now that could reveal whether your prostate is in trouble long before it's too late. It's quick, it's clear, and it just might save your life. And before you think this is another boring health lecture, let me reassure you it's not. Because in the next few minutes, I'll walk you through exact steps backed by science, told in plain language, designed for men just like you who want answers without the guesswork. The very first sign you can test at home is surprisingly simple. Drink 1 full glass of water, about 8 ounces, and pay attention to how long it takes before you feel the urge to go. Here's why it matters. In a healthy prostate, your bladder can comfortably hold that water for 2 to 4 hours. But when the prostate begins to swell or press against the bladder, that timing shrinks dramatically. Take Mark, a 56-year-old truck driver. He used to think drinking more water was making him healthier, but soon he noticed he couldn't last even an hour without rushing to a restroom. He ignored it for months, thinking it was just age. When he finally got checked, doctors discovered an enlarged prostate was the real culprit. Science backs this up. Studies from the National Institutes of Health show that men with prostate enlargement are far more likely to experience urinary urgency in under 1 hour after fluid intake. It's one of the earliest red flags your body gives you, yet most men overlook it. So the next time you drink a glass of water, set a mental timer. If you're running to the bathroom in less than an hour, your prostate may already be asking for help. But here's the truth. Not all warnings show up during the day. Some of the most dangerous signals reveal themselves in the middle of the night when you're supposed to be resting. And that's where things get even more alarming. If daytime urgency is a red flag, nighttime trips to the bathroom are a flashing siren. Waking up once may not mean much, but if you're getting up 2, 3, even 4 times every night, your prostate could be the hidden reason. Think about John, a 62-year-old retiree. For years, he believed his sleepless nights were simply the price of aging. But behind those constant bathroom runs, his prostate was quietly enlarging, pressing on his bladder, and stealing the deep rest his body desperately needed. The science is crystal clear. A Harvard study found that men who wake up more than twice per night to urinate have nearly double the risk of prostate disease compared to those who sleep through undisturbed. And here's the kicker: poor sleep doesn't just drain your energy. It weakens your immune system, raises stress hormones, and accelerates the very growth of abnormal prostate cells. So if your nights are being interrupted again and again, don't shrug it off as just getting older. Your prostate may be sending you an SOS signal every single time you crawl out of bed in the dark. But here's where it gets even trickier. Because when that nightly struggle continues long enough, your body often adds another warning one that disguises itself as back pain or muscle strain. And that next sign is far easier to miss. If nighttime urination robs your sleep, persistent pain in your hips or pelvis robs your peace of mind. And here's the catch: most men don't even realize it's connected to the prostate. They assume it's arthritis, an old sports injury, or just the natural wear and tear of age. But what if those aches were something far more serious? Let's talk about Richard, a 58-year-old office manager. For months, he lived with a dull, nagging ache in his lower back and hips. At first, he blamed his chair at work. Then he thought it was from carrying groceries or bending over in the yard. He popped painkillers, stretched a little, even got a new mattress, but nothing helped. The discomfort lingered, and slowly it began to interfere with his daily life. When Richard finally saw a doctor, the scans revealed the truth: his prostate was enlarged and inflamed, pressing against surrounding nerves and tissues. The pain wasn't from his muscles, it was his prostate sending a distress call. Science explains this clearly. The prostate sits just beneath the bladder and in front of the rectum, surrounded by a web of muscles, nerves, and blood vessels. When the gland becomes inflamed or enlarged, pressure builds in the pelvic floor. That pressure radiates outward, often mistaken for hip, back, or lower abdominal pain. According to a 2022 study published in the Journal of Urology, up to 35% of men with chronic pelvic pain were later diagnosed with prostate-related conditions ranging from benign prostatic hyperplasia to early-stage cancer. The scary part. Many of them delayed diagnosis for years because they thought it was just back strain. And here's another layer: pain linked to the prostate often behaves differently from ordinary muscle soreness. It's not sharp like a pulled muscle, and it doesn't go away with rest. Instead, it lingers like a dull, heavy pressure, sometimes worse when you sit for long periods, sometimes spreading down into the thighs or lower abdomen. This kind of pain doesn't respond well to over-the-counter medication because the root cause isn't muscular, it's glandular and vascular. So how do you know if what you're feeling is just normal aging or something more? One way is to track patterns. If the pain has lasted longer than a month, hasn't improved with basic changes like exercise or stretching, and seems to come with other urinary symptoms, the prostate is a prime suspect. Doctors often advise men to note whether the discomfort is paired with increased urination, burning sensations, or difficulty starting the flow. When these occur together, it's rarely just age. Think about it this way. Your body has very few ways to get your attention. Pain is one of them. If you dismiss the ache in your hips or pelvis, you may be ignoring the one signal that could lead you to an early diagnosis. An early diagnosis, as countless studies confirm, is the difference between simple treatment and a life-threatening disease. Richard's story had a fortunate ending. Because he finally took action, his doctors caught the problem early, and with medication and monitoring, he avoided surgery. But not every man is that lucky. Too many wait until the pain spreads, until the cancer cells move beyond the prostate, when the fight becomes infinitely harder. And this is where the urgency becomes personal. The longer you ignore the pain, the louder the consequences become. Left untreated, prostate-related pain doesn't just affect your comfort, it begins to affect your entire quality of life, from mobility to energy to confidence. Now here's the part most men never connect: when the prostate is under strain, it doesn't just affect urination and pain, it also interferes with sexual performance in ways that are both physically and emotionally devastating. In fact, one of the most overlooked warning signs shows up not in your bladder or your hips, but in your bedroom. But just knowing this isn't enough, because the next signal your body sends is even more personal, even more alarming, and yet still widely ignored. If pelvic pain is easy to misjudge, changes in your sexual performance are even easier to hide. Many men don't talk about it. They blame age, stress, or fatigue. But in countless cases, erectile dysfunction isn't just about lifestyle. It's a red flag waving from your prostate. Take Daniel, a 54-year-old high school coach. For years, he was strong, active, and confident. Then he began noticing subtle changes. It was harder to get and maintain an erection. Intimacy with his wife, once effortless, became a source of stress. At first, he dismissed it as aging. But what Daniel didn't realize was that his prostate, inflamed and enlarged, was putting pressure on the nerves and blood vessels that fuel sexual function. By the time he sought help, the symptoms had already stolen not just his confidence, but his peace of mind. Science makes the connection clear. The prostate sits at the crossroads of blood vessels and nerves, critical for sexual health. When the gland swells, it disrupts both pathways. Research from the Cleveland Clinic found that men with prostate enlargement were nearly twice as likely to experience erectile difficulties compared to those without. And in men with prostate cancer, erectile dysfunction can appear as one of the very first warning signs, long before pain or obvious urinary trouble. This isn't just about performance in the bedroom. Erectile dysfunction linked to the prostate is about circulation, nerve health, and gland function. It's the body's way of saying something deeper is wrong. And ignoring it doesn't just risk your sex life, it risks your life, period. Now here's where it gets more complicated. Many men feel ashamed to bring this up with their doctors. They'd rather stay silent, hoping the problem goes away on its own. But silence is dangerous, because while you're waiting, the disease doesn't stop waiting, it progresses. And the longer you leave it unchecked, the harder it becomes to treat. Daniel's story proves a crucial point. When he finally went in for a checkup, his doctors discovered not just prostate enlargement, but early cancer cells. The good news: because he spoke up in time, treatment options were still wide open. His honesty may very well have saved his life. So if you've noticed a sudden change in your sexual health, reduced desire, weaker erections, or difficulty maintaining them, it's not something to be embarrassed about. It's a signal. a biological alarm you cannot afford to hit snooze on. And here's the bottom line. When multiple symptoms begin stacking: urinary urgency, restless nights, pelvic pain, and now sexual dysfunction, you've crossed into dangerous territory. That's the moment when hesitation can cost you everything. But just knowing this isn't enough, because the most critical step is still ahead. Learning exactly when to stop waiting, pick up the phone, and see a doctor before it's too late. So after hearing all these warning signs, frequent urination, restless nights, aching hips, and even changes in sexual health, the real question is this: when should you stop brushing things off and finally see a doctor? That line is clearer than you think. Let's look at the story of Tom, a 61-year-old retired firefighter. Tom had always been the tough guy, the one who pushed through pain, the one who never backed down. He woke up 3 times a night, felt pressure in his pelvis, and noticed intimacy wasn't the same as before. But in his mind, he was strong enough to handle it. Toughness had carried him through burning buildings. Surely it could carry him through a little discomfort. But toughness doesn't stop cancer. By the time Tom finally sat in a doctor's office, his prostate cancer had already advanced beyond the gland. His biggest regret wasn't the diagnosis, it was waiting too long. Here's the truth: if you're experiencing 3 or more of the warning signs we've covered, that's your threshold. That's your wake-up call to schedule an appointment. Don't wait for the pain to become unbearable. Don't wait for fatigue to overwhelm you. By then, the disease may have already moved further than you realize. The science is sobering. According to the American Cancer Society, when prostate cancer is detected early, while it's still confined to the gland, the 5-year survival rate is over 99%. But once it spreads beyond the prostate, that survival rate drops dramatically. Early detection isn't just important, it's life-saving. And the only way to guarantee early detection is to stop ignoring symptoms and get checked. What does getting checked actually mean? For most men, it begins with a simple PSA blood test, often combined with a physical exam or ultrasound. These tests take minutes, but the knowledge they provide could add decades to your life. Dr. Edward Blake often tells his patients, a quick test today is far easier than a lifetime of regret tomorrow. And here's the part most men don't expect. Seeing a doctor doesn't just protect you physically, it protects you emotionally. Carrying silent worry in your mind night after night drains your spirit. But once you get answers, even if they're not perfect, you regain control. You move from fear into action, and action is always better than silence. So if you've been keeping score at home, if you drink a glass of water and can't last an hour, if you wake up again and again at night, if you feel that persistent pelvic ache or notice sudden changes in sexual performance, don't hesitate. That's not just aging. That's your body raising its voice. Tom's story doesn't have to be your story. You can choose differently. You can act before it's too late. Remember, hesitation is the enemy of health. Every day you wait is another day the disease gets a head start. But just knowing when to see a doctor isn't the end of this journey. Because now comes the most important step of all the mindset you carry, forward the encouragement to take action and the hope that it's never too late to protect your future. Taking care of your prostate isn't just about avoiding disease. It's about protecting your quality of life, your independence, and your peace of mind. The truth is, so many men wait until it's too late. They ignore the signals, they push through the pain, and they convince themselves it's just age. But you don't have to follow that path. You've already taken the most important step by educating yourself and paying attention to your body. That alone puts you ahead of millions of men who never stop to listen. So here's my advice: take what you've learned today seriously. Try the 1-minute self-test. Write down your results. Notice the patterns in your urination, in your sleep, in your energy, and even in your intimacy. These little observations, when tracked over time, can become the clues that save your life. And don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Share it with the men you love, your brothers, your friends, your father, even your sons. Because prostate health isn't just a personal issue, it's a family issue and it's a community issue. I also want to remind you that no man should face this journey alone. If you feel anxious or uncertain, reach out, talk to your doctor, start the conversation. Even if it feels uncomfortable at first, you'll find relief in knowing you're not battling in silence. And if you're already struggling with some of these symptoms, don't be ashamed. These challenges are far more common than you think. Millions of men deal with them every single day, and speaking up is a sign of strength, not weakness. Now, before we finish, I want to ask you to do one more thing. Save this video. Keep it as a reference you can come back to whenever you need to check yourself again. And if this information has been valuable to you, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll always have access to the latest medical insights, practical tips, and life-saving knowledge about prostate health delivered straight to you. It's one of the easiest, most powerful ways to stay informed and stay ahead. And finally, let me leave you with hope. Even if you've ignored the signs in the past, it's not too late to start today. Early awareness, early action, and consistent care can make all the difference. You are not powerless. You have the ability to protect your health, to extend your life, and to continue living with strength and dignity. And remember, we'll be here to guide you step by step as you take control of your future.